Well, hello, and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 153. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Will Silver.
And believe it or not, I am actually Gray Williams.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you back.
Jinx!
Not a deep fake. Or is he?
Just a shallow fake, really.
Well, if you want to find out more about Gray and all us other deepfakes here at Momentous, you can visit us at www.momentous.tv, where you can find our latest episodes, the video versions, audio versions, social links, links to team social links, etc., etc. But let's get started with a little bit of follow-up, because everything is awesome and people have productive hobbies. A couple of weeks ago, William and I spoke about the whole Kate Middleton nonsense and people dissecting the bad Photoshop job that apparently she claims to have done in releasing a photo of her and her children. And we just talked about how, people got nothing better to do. And there was some obviously bad artifacts in there, et cetera, et cetera. And there's been so much going around in the news the last couple of months swirling around her since she's been out of the public eye. And things got so bad, especially with the dissection of said Photoshop job, that I guess she finally felt compelled to actually make a video and say, "Hey, everyone, I actually have cancer, okay?" But of course, because the internet is awesome, now this video is sparking all sorts of conspiracy theories because people think that their AI might be involved in this and that and the other thing, and where's her wedding ring and this and that. And all I have to say is, why doesn't everybody just leave Kate alone?
I'm reminded of William Shatner on Saturday Night Live. Get a life! Like, oh, jeez.
Well, the other thing is she doesn't owe us anything. Why do we care? What do you care? I don't know. It's I care about her. I just don't care. Like, she doesn't owe us anything. And it's like, even if it was a deep fake, I don't care.
The argument is that the royal family lives off the public purse of England, and that's an entirely other different conversation. But Kate actually did drop just the most, it's an unfortunate bit of explosive, but like, hi, yeah, thanks for being a dick. I have cancer.
And there you go.
You just that argument's won. Like, shut up. Just shut up. But no, they were like, yeah, actually, let's take a look at the No, don't take a look at the video. Don't.
Just stop, everyone.
You had just find your humanity instead of trying to find her wedding ring.
Exactly.
Right?
As we talked about last week, Tristan, I thought it was pretty tasteless too that they were going back to photos that were like 2 years old or like several years old to find like problems with photoshopping. It's like, what it was so good that you got to do a bunch of stuff on social media that you had to troll through multiple years of her Instagram to try to find other problems with things from multiple years ago that you never noticed at the time.
Do you know who I blame? I blame Dan Brown. If it weren't for the Da Vinci Code, these morons would not be looking for hidden meaning in everything.
Where's an albino monk when you need it?
Right? Yeah. Paul Bettany, this is on you.
Ugh. All right.
It was like hyperpale in this and hyperpale in WandaVision. Crossover?
Perfect. In other follow-up news, Gray, I guess the entire Super Mario Maker community got kind of punked a little bit. Will and I were speaking about this story last week, that there's this whole what was it? It was the movement call. Team 0%. Yeah, Team 0%. And they were people were trying to clear every single Super Mario Maker level for the Wii U before the servers got shut down in April. And there was one very problematic level left, and it's just come out. The creator of said level has just confessed, and this level was called trimming the herbs, something like that. And yeah, the creator of said level just came out and said, actually, it's an impossible level.
Yeah, I designed it while high, hence trimming the herbs.
Yeah.
So here's the funny thing. The next generation Super Mario Maker actually takes more of a real world maker approach, wherein Mario invests in a whole bunch of equipment that he sees on YouTube, can't figure out how to use it, and then it collects dust for 3 years.
Perfect. There with his Apple Vision Pro. So just a little update on that. Will, any perspective, did we get punked as well? I mean, this was just like...
No, I mean, we were reporting on something that the community didn't know about. So, yeah, I mean, I can sleep at night now.
Perfect. Yes. All the levels have been done. Now we can retire Super Mario Maker for the Wii U and then version 2 can come out for the Switch and everyone can try and, clear all the levels there. However many, was there? There was like tens of thousands of levels.
85,000 or something.
Yeah. Wild.
And those are the ones that they went through. I think there was lots that had already been cleared, right? Yeah. Those were just the ones that had been uncleared.
And this one level that was just tripping everyone up, there was 280,000 attempts. And then finally the creator said, yeah, actually you can't clear it. Sorry.
I was going to say, here's the funny thing. This is actually a bit of a reflection on the walled garden App Store approach, right? Nintendo didn't have very strong walls here. You have a level that does not function by design. And we're asking, some companies are accusing them of antitrust and saying that you should drop the walls in your garden. I actually don't have a horse in this race, but I just thought I'd stir the crap a little bit.
We'll get to that in a little bit. In other news, this is a couple of weeks ago. Well, we've talked about Roku and the shenanigans with you got to click OK to accept the end user license agreement on some of their devices.
We're
TVs.
Supposed to boo every time somebody says Roku now, right?
Exactly. And pro tip, you could actually take your TV offline and you won't have to do that, but then it's a dumb TV like it should be. Anyhow, in other Roku news, because we discussed that Roku actually subsidizes their very affordable TVs by harvesting data and then selling it to others, data about what you watch and so on. So one of the little downsides of collecting user data is that if you don't have the best data security practices, you can get hacked. And that's exactly what happened. Over 15,000 hacked Roku accounts have been sold on the dark web for 50 cents each. So there you go. That's what your
insulting.
Data. That's what your data is worth. A measly 50 cents. But again, another reason to just stick with your dumb TV, stick with your nice, secure, secure. Nothing's 100%. Hopefully Apple TV or Chromecast or Fire Stick or something like that. And let's try to avoid business models that just subsidize things using our data.
We do need a better name because Roku, as it stands, as with many of the other ones, are pretty dumb. Maybe disconnected or unconnected TV or antisocial television.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember when social TV people were trying to make it a thing 10 years ago. Yeah.
Web TV.
There's that too.
Gray, you've got
another user data story for this week. This time involving GM, General Motors. What's up with them?
Sorry, give me just a second. I just closed this tab. So a lot of the same thing. GM has been collecting driver data. The onboard data bus 2 sensor.
OBD2.
The OBD2. That was the thing that we plugged.
I loved his last album.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a collaboration with Arisa, right? What was the device that we bought when we were down in the States?
Automatic.
The automatic, and it had like 2 C's at the end, didn't it? Or it had 2 T's?
No, it was just regular. It wasn't.
Yeah. Oh, it was automatic. Delightful little device, and then it just buggered off because cloud. But so GM has been using the OBD2 sensor to record data in crashes for the longest time. I know a couple of people who actually got out of bad insurance claims because their OBD2 data has proven that they were doing the thing they said they were doing. So OnStar is the next generation of this. It is the satellite connected, hey, you've just had a crash. Was it because you got into an accident or did you do a bunch of blow and drink and hit a pole?
Which in Chevy Malibu
in West Hollywood
Chevy Malibu
tends to be the thing. So a lot of folks out there didn't sign up for OnStar, but it turns out that the data was being gathered anyway. And who would you not want your driving data provided to? If you're not a great, even honestly,
insurance companies, maybe
the insurance companies, because they are putting profit between risk mitigation and consumers, which is inherently evil. And insurance companies should be destroyed with impunity. Just wanted to keep that kind of vague.
So, but the flip side of that, if people were opting into these things, then the idea was that they would save some money on insurance. But the dark side of what was actually happening is that people were actually seeing increased insurance rates, and they had no idea why.
I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Exactly.
GM, like, honestly, it feels like they are a one step forward, put it in reverse, and haul ass 100 meters back every time I look at them. I feel like Michael Dell at this point. Shut it down, give the money back to the shareholders. Let's turn Detroit into like an art-based city, because honestly, this is ridiculous. It's the very basis of what you don't do. Like, does the click wrap mean nothing to you?
So in this update to the story, however, Gray, it sounds like there's a bit of a win for consumers.
Yes. Yeah. Jim got the wrist slapped. And it seems like, so this is actually one of those things where, as Canadians, for those of you Americans out there who are listening to the podcast right now, we're the ones above you who are kind of looking at you kind of with squinty eyes and going, are you guys going to make it through the year? Because it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But we actually have a great privacy commissioner here who's done a ton of really great work in controlling things like this. This time around, you guys took the lead, and great. GM has decided to stop sharing driver data, which means they were shamed into stopping doing the thing that they were doing that was worthy of shame.
Hand in the cookie jar.
God, Lee Iacocca would be so disappointed in you.
All right, and we've got a little bit of Instagram and Threads news, but before we get into that specifically, there's sort of a side story, and that there was an app that we talked about a year ago from the co-founders of Instagram. It was an AI-powered news app called Artifact. And then we learned that in the last few weeks, I'm not sure if we actually talked about it, that it was going to be shutting down.
I was
Sorry?
I was choked. I love Artifact.
Yeah. And so why don't you, if you're familiar with Artifact, Gray, why don't you give us a little rundown of what its benefit is? It's really targeting younger news consumers, and it had some AI summary features and whatnot. So give us a little rundown on Artifact.
Yeah, Artifact is great. So it is a newsreader app wherein, instead of using your own time, your own brain, and your own preferences to choose the stories by which you read, by selecting them from a list of stories that is presented to you, Artifact watches you creepily as you read articles that are presented to you the first couple of times that you open the app. After 10 articles, it starts to say, hey, after 10 data points, I know you, because I'm also looking at everything you're doing in the back on your iPhone, because you didn't say ask app not to track. So here we are. And it is scarily accurate on things that I want to read.
So it's kind of like the TikTok of news apps. I think that's how it was described at the time, because its algorithm seems to be, like you say, scary good.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading a lot of these articles, and then I just really decided that Taiwan wasn't a country.
I wonder who's putting their thumb on that scale.
Yeah.
Now, Will, if you were to use a news app like Artifact, what are the odds that within 24 hours, most of the news would be kitten related?
Well, 90%.
Well, the good news is, Will, the app may not be shutting down after all. And it sounds like, I mean, if I had to guess, 2024, U.S. election year, maybe we'll just hang on to this a little bit longer, keep throwing a bit more money, and maybe this will be our moment. That's the thing. So much with apps, hardware, software is timing. Mm-hmm. So maybe if they can just hang on a little bit longer, use some of that Instagram acquisition money from Meta, and just see if they can hit critical mass in this exciting year ahead. So in other Instagram related news, speaking of the year ahead, Threads, and this was news from about 6 weeks ago, started testing, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it here on Momentous Live, but they started testing a feature called Today's Topics to tell users what's trending in the US. Now, they were kind of doing this a little reluctantly, because Threads was deliberately trying to not become Twitter, because so much of Twitter is news driven. There's newsmakers on there. There's so many journalists on there. And Threads was trying to become a happier place, like the Instagram of text-based, social networks. And
Hashtag eye roll.
Exactly. So they were, and they grew very quickly about a year ago because you could just use your Instagram sign in. So they're getting some traction, but there's stuff going on with Blue Sky, formerly T2, Mastodon, still a thing. None of them have really managed to dislodge Twitter, or X as now known, even though X is apparently still is bleeding users slowly but surely. So we're not sure if someone's going to take the mantle, because there needs to be a critical mass of the news makers, the politicians, the celebrities, the journalists, athletes, and so on, because that's when news is happening with the Oscars or elections, whatever. It's mostly happening on X still. So Threads was resisting, but they're like, oh, maybe we need to cater to the news junkies a little bit. However, in doing so, they've been experimenting with that, but now they've got a default setting where they will be limiting political content recommendations on both Threads and Instagram. So they'll automatically be opting people out of that, because again, they're trying to, as best they can, to keep Instagram and Threads a happier place than the toxic hell stew that sites like X and others can become, because next thing you know, it's just all politics. And really, does that make anyone happier? So, cue the eye roll from Gray perhaps, but great. Any thoughts before we throw to Will on his thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, the best app that's doing a great job of dethroning X is X, naturally. And looking at this, how long does it take to copy Twitter? Like, is this a massive programmatical challenge? Because literally, X is not doing Twitter's job. It's a pile. We all know that. Someone needs to step in. And it's a bit like Andy Dufresne, right? Swimming through a mile of crap before getting to Zihuatanejo. Somebody out there's got to do it. Blue Sky might, Mastodon might, probably not. Zuckerberg is just leaving Zuckerbucks on the table here. Yes, politics are bad. Oh, boo friggin' who. You know why he doesn't have politics on there? Because he doesn't want people to eat him. That is what's going to be the end game of this. And he knows if he can have a sloppier, happier, dopier Twitter, then it may not happen. But you know what? It's just slowing things down, Zuck.
But Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram, there have been studies that have shown that there is an inverse correlation between news consumption and happiness.
Yes.
The less news you consume, the more news you consume, the more miserable you are. So the more that people can unplug from that day-to-day morphine drip of news, which is doing the opposite of what morphine's supposed to do. It just makes you agitated. And I know this from all the people that I saw going crazy in 2016 and in 2020 and all the years in between. So I kind of appreciate what they're trying to do here. If Blue Sky wants to do the news thing, again, Blue Sky is, from what I understand and what I've seen, it's a little quirkier. So I'm not sure if they're going to lean into the news. So, maybe just leave
can I raise a point
that
of
stuff
order?
on X, and we can have these other places. Maybe there will be no dominant player in that space, and everyone's just going to be second tier.
Can I raise a point of order?
Sure.
Yeah, Instagram doesn't have the higher ground when the higher ground is built on the bodies of teenage girls who killed themselves because of that app. Sorry. News doesn't just do it. The algorithm is the problem. It's not news. So,
yeah, algorithms are
I'm arguing for the destruction of the internet.
Sounds good.
Ted Kaczynski's style.
Will, in your use of Twitter, now X, or Instagram or other social platforms, do you like to see political content in there, whether it's from algorithmically generated recommendations or from people on there, or would you rather have an experience that doesn't have that sort of stuff intruding?
Personally, I mean, I guess it depends on what you're going to social media for, or those kind of platforms. I don't go to them for politics, so I don't want politics there. It annoys me when politics in that kind of thing. And it's
well,
not
Will, you're not just wrong, you're evil.
Yeah. And it's not that, I consume and talk about politics with people and in places that I want to, and channels or avenues that I want to. But I think my biggest problem these days is that everything has to be political, and that your political beliefs have to define who you are. And I'm just tired of that. I just want to go to a hockey game or a soccer game and watch a couple or a few grown men toss a puck around a sheet of ice or a ball around a pitch. I just want to go to, I don't know, a movie and not be swamped with politics in ads and stuff like that. So, I mean, for me, I just think that I want to disconnect from those things. I have to connect with them enough as is, that it's just so polarizing. It's so heated these days. I don't want politics in my social media, particularly because no matter what view you have, if you look in the comment section of something that starts to be political on an open channel, you're just gonna get frustrated. Whichever political leaning you have, you're going to be peed off about something that somebody's going to say. So just don't engage that way. I don't engage that way. So,
well, the good news is there's a choice, and so they're turning, because they had been limiting that sort of content. They're going to leave that as the opt-in, and if you want to turn it off, we have some instructions. If you want to, keep everything terrible, you can go in and turn off the political content filter, and you can get all the politics you want on Instagram and threads as well. Exactly. So your choice again. And then, Gray, you mentioned the teenage girl body count there. The mental health crisis takes many forms, and for a lot of people, that is the constant consumption of political news over which they have very little control, especially when it's jurisdictions in which they don't live.
You're absolutely right. And I did say that in jest because, in particular, I was one of those people. I had a mental break because of where I was living, and because of the political situation that was going on in the world.
A little pandemic.
Yeah, you know what? And honestly, I wish I had lost the fight sooner, because you're right, it doesn't bring happiness.
Well, one thing that might bring us a little bit of happiness is Apple's WWDC 2024.
Dub.
Set for June 10th. And according to Greg Joswiak, he says it's going to be absolutely incredible. Capital A, capital I, wink.
Oh, that's sly.
So I wonder what they'll be talking about at WWDC 20.
The problem was that was actually a lowercase L. Absolutely incredible. And it's Paul Simon coming back to do the ringtone for the iPhone.
You can call me.
You can be my bodyguard.
So
we just got
we'll be talking much more. Exactly. Oh, look at, and also the WW is kind of connected. Oh boy, they're messing with us. I didn't even notice that at first in the graphic. Nice. So they're going to be talking about quite a bit about Apple Vision Pro, I'm sure, the version 2.0 of the operating system there. Apple iOS 18, which is said to be one of Apple's biggest iOS upgrades yet. And of course, whatever newer version of macOS Sonoma, tvOS, iPadOS, watchOS, and. So, Will, is there anything that you're hoping to see from WWDC 2024 from Apple, hardware-wise, software-wise, refinement-wise, and what we've got currently from your existing devices?
No, nothing in particular that I can think of. I mean, the less upgrades, the better, because I don't want to buy something new right now. So, so that's all I got to say.
Well, if they stick to mostly software, which it seems like every other year, like they'll do a bunch of hardware announcements, and then they'll take a year off and focus more on the software. They kind of bounce back and forth.
It's the tick soft, brother.
Yeah, exactly. Tick soft. So maybe we'll see some enhanced features on the stuff that we've already thrown our money at. But Gray, with the AI angle here, Do you think this is the year Siri's finally going to get smarter, especially given the news that Apple is shopping around, maybe collaborating with Google on some, at least the cloud smarts, whereas Apple might use its own secret sauce on device? Any predictions or anything you're anticipating, hoping for from WWDC 2024?
Well, I mean, we're already scraping the bottom of the barrel, so we can't get much worse with Siri. So the odds are it's going to get better. A couple of things that I would like to see. A better Siri would be great. I'd like to see. Honestly, I'd like to see them at WWDC address this antitrust suit, because it does feel a little like Microsoft back in the 90s. I realize that I bleed Apple red. Wait, anyway, but this doesn't, like, it feels like they're operating in 2007, not 2024. So I'm not great with this right now. I'm kind of looking at them going, yeah, okay, operating system, yeah, okay, development tools, 30%. I don't know, man. Last but not least, the big piece of hardware and software that I would like to see come out, and I think now that they're scrapping the car, they've got the engineering smarts to do this, is the iBidet with WashOS.
Perfect.
Just the one place in the house where you're guaranteed to be using an Apple product at some point, now enhanced with iBidet.
All right. Well, speaking of toilets, let's get to the U.S. government.
Boom!
Boom, shakalaka.
Ooh, that was a better segue than I saw the Seattle Police on.
So, big news last week that U.S. Department of Justice is suing Apple. And there's a lot. There's 88 pages. And
it reads like a bit of an angry rant.
Yeah. And to its credit, it is not super jargon filled. It's obviously geared for the layperson. Not that I know many lay people that would be reading 88 pages of this case. And obviously more is going to come out in the case itself. And this is just the first salvo in what's going to be a torturous, multi-year long process.
Because God forbid they be successful. See, I'm contradicting myself now. It's right.
So the five, there are five main areas that the U.S. Department of Justice is basically taking Apple to task in, and that is super apps, cloud streaming apps, messaging, smartwatches, and digital wallets. So what we're going to do, and I know Gray's been following this story since last week and over the weekend, and we're going to sort of take a look at each of these one by one. We're not going to go too deep because ultimately this kind of stuff is super boring, and there's so much going to come out in the wash, and everyone's got their takes. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of takes online, so fill your boots. We'll have some links for you. The Verge has a great rundown with links to all sorts of different articles, different angles. Everyone in the tech sphere, the Apple sphere, the blogosphere, the law sphere. I don't know. They've all got their
Vision Sphere thing yet?
The which?
The Vision Pro sphere?
Oh, can you imagine? Oh, you could strap on your Apple Vision Pro and just scroll through an 88-page PDF.
We call it the IACO chamber. It's great.
So, yeah. So basically, the DOJ is claiming that Apple lawfully maintains its monopoly power by harming competition, by imposing contractual restrictions, fees, and taxes on app creation and distribution. And as mentioned, in super apps and cloud streaming apps. Before we dig into those, there's a key thing, though, that they are claiming Apple is a monopoly by very carefully defining the market. And defining the market definition is super important when it comes to cases like this, because they're saying, oh, Apple's a monopoly. Well, the average regular person might say, well, wait a second, if they've come across this, Apple only just recently passed the 50% smartphone market share in the United States. They're at about 55% right now. Worldwide, they're only at about 30%. Okay, so mono and monopoly means one dominant player. 55% isn't exactly dominant. Oh, but wait, say the DOJ. Well, we're talking about their monopoly in performance smartphones.
In good ones. The ones that don't suck.
Right? So they also in the document, they also refer to them as premium smartphones as well. So basically the upper
They
upper end.
decline to enter the garbage market.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll take great pains to do that. And Apple, of course, will take great pains to go, hi, you've heard of Samsung, right? They also sell by far the most Android smartphones out there. Google has a smaller market share. And then, of course, there are a number of other players. But shouldn't, of course, Apple doesn't have any competition for iOS because they built the whole thing, the stack, the hardware and the software. Google, on the other hand, took another approach. Android, it's open source. If you want to do your crazy, overseas phones, super cheap. If you want, if you're a bigger brand and you want more Google juice in your phone, okay, like your Samsung or Motorola has kind of bounced around. Who are they even owned by? I guess Lenovo now. And Sony's still doing Android phones. There's OnePlus. There's nothing. This is an amazingly diverse Android ecosystem, especially worldwide. Now, why is Samsung allowed to dominate that ecosystem so much? Is it because they offer some of the best Android smartphones out there? Possibly. Or is it they're wielding some sort of monopoly power because of X, Y, and Z, or that Google is maybe favoring them, whatever. Anyway, we're not going to be litigating that side of things. But to say that Apple has monopoly power in the smartphone market at 55% and not, in the premium or performance smartphone market, they've got closer to 70%. It's like, okay, now we're just moving the goalposts a little bit. So market definition, just keep that in the back of our minds because that's going to come up time and time again in this whole lawsuit. So super apps. You may have heard of WeChat in China. Super apps are basically gigantic apps that'll do a whole bunch of things. They contain a bunch of kind of little mini apps that'll do everything from being your social networking to your ride hailing to your payments, et cetera, et cetera. And what the claims here is that Apple has really made it tough for super apps to happen because they don't really allow apps within apps.
Hang on a second.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't a super app sound like a monopoly?
Well, exactly, right? Like you just want to trade one for another. Okay, Facebook is the closest thing we've got to a super app in the States. So you want Meta to become more powerful?
Yeah.
Like, really? Like that's what I don't get about this.
This monopoly is preventing other monopolies from having a monopoly on your.
Anyway, but of course, so Gray, any other thoughts on the super app situation?
Honestly, they're a scourge, right? We need big, beautiful walls, Trump style, between the things that we do. The more this information gets shared, the less power that we as individuals have. Super apps suck. Apple is doing a great job here. On this one, not guilty.
So
not guilty.
Now, people in China love them some WeChat, of course.
Oh yeah, that's honestly, as soon as somebody in China is like, "Hey, I love this thing," I'm like, "Oh, actually, I'll reconsider."
And not to mention the backdoors to the CCP that are kind of there. So, Will, would you like to be able to have an app that contains? Remember how annoyed people got when Facebook took Messenger out of the big blue Facebook app? I actually preferred it personally but some people like having everything in one place. Will, would you prefer to have a number of sort of specialty apps or things kind of clustered into one? There's no wrong answer here, quite honestly, because there's convenience and other factors there. But what's your preference, Will?
Well, I think I mostly like them being separate. I will say I did prefer when the messaging app was part of Facebook, and I guess that's partly like things like Instagram also have like a messaging app, right? So
well, they're integrated now.
Sorry,
they're integrated now.
Yeah, but I mean when they had separated them, so I didn't like that having them separate. It seemed somewhat forced. I guess it also depends on the feature set and what you're asking that separate app to do. Maybe if there's some reason to have it separate, that's fine. But I just felt that in the case of Facebook, it was a little bit, again, like you said, people were frustrated because they had it and then they had to open up a second app and they didn't see enough benefit in it. So, I mean, I prefer to have separate apps as long as it makes sense. And I guess also, you don't want to take a step backward either.
So one of the key contentions, and this is, I think, obvious to anyone that actually thinks about it for a little bit, in places like China, where super apps like WeChat are so dominant, the type of phone that you use, whether it's an Android phone, a cheapo Android phone, a performance Android phone, a smartphone, or anything that runs WeChat, like that platform doesn't matter as much. And so the claim here, and this is actually probably a true claim, that Apple does not want to make it easy for super apps to become a thing because it could render people's choice of an iOS phone, an iPhone, to be less relevant. Maybe if people became reliant on super apps, that they would more easily switch to Android. So I think that is a fair claim, but at the same, so the question is, well, why should Apple make it easy for that to happen?
A single point of failure is terrible, and like these apps become a massive, like festering boil of a single point of failure. Maybe I'm underselling this. I don't know.
So related, one of the claims is Apple has been preventing developers from offering cloud gaming apps that reduce dependence on the iPhone's expensive hardware. Again, cloud gaming apps let you run the games largely in the cloud, and you're streaming to your device, and so you don't require as powerful hardware to do this. This is actually kind of obsolete already, because Apple kind of saw this coming and has already started to loosen things up a little bit in this regard. So we'll see if they actually end up dropping this, or if they're going to have further claims. Because all while this is happening, one of the stories we haven't really been talking about, because again, it's super boring and it's in Europe, is the EU, the European Union / the EC, the European Commission, creating the Digital Markets Act and forcing everyone, including Apple, Meta, Google, and whatnot, to comply, and requiring a number of changes to how some of these companies do business, for better, and in a lot of cases for worse. So, I mean, but in this case, Will, have you ever used any cloud streaming like platforms or apps on any other devices, or on PC or anything like that? From the way I look at it, it's like, well, wait a second. If not everyone has got an amazing, super fast connection. So if you're playing any games that require any sort of like super low latency, like why would you want to use cloud gaming apps?
Yeah, not that I can think of. The thing that I use all the time is Steam, but it kind of syncs. It's not like streaming.
It's downloading the whole game, right?
Yeah.
And it's got
and like there'll be syncs with like some of your save points and stuff like that, but that's not like streamed in that sense.
Yeah, it's not running on Steam's iron in the sky and coming down to your Steam Deck. I've got a little handheld service called an Absolute that does that, and I can tell you right now, like I'm of two minds of this, because this is a weird, stupid hill for Apple to die on. It's really just sticking it to essentially Microsoft and Sony, kind of. Now that Sony's got their own handheld, it's just kind of Microsoft. Let's be frank, the Xbox streaming service going to a non-gaming device is hot garbage, as is Sony's, as is GeForce Now. They're a mess. Stadia was a mess. They still haven't figured this out. I know some people are like, oh yeah, no, I read this 120. Okay, you're the chosen one. Congratulations, Neo. Please go fix the Matrix. Because every time I've laid hands on this crap, it doesn't work. So I'm looking at Apple going, the best way to kill this off would have been to let people use it, because it's horrible.
Yeah, let the market decide.
Yeah.
So the other question that comes to my mind is like, so people that care about this kind of stuff and are like sort of hardcore gamers, and I mean, I think there's certain tiers of gamers, and I think a lot of the hardcore gamers maybe wouldn't even want cloud gaming apps because of the latency, and especially if they're playing Twitch games. But even like the second tier gamers, the ones that are still like Apple, no thanks, because a lot of gamers don't use Apple gear. They're probably more likely to use Android phones anyhow. Or like, are they really clamoring? Are they really like stuck on iPhones going, oh geez, I wish that we could do this on the iPhone because I love Apple so much? No, they're on Android already.
Most of my gamer friends have iPhones.
They've been trying to get cloud gaming to work for like 15 years. There's been various attempts at it over the years, and they can never get it to work properly.
Well, to be fair, I mean,
yeah.
Google tried Stadia and they eventually did shut it down, but others have been making, others have been making progress. So it's just like, again, like we said, this could be all moot in a few weeks if Apple continues to loosen up on this. The key thing is like the idea, they still want to get their pound of flesh if any purchases are made or, all
Can I tell you another problem with cloud gaming?
Yes.
Because you already see it with Steam, and Steam's not cloud-based, is that go read complaints about some games with high-end graphics and see all the people complain about loading time. And guess what? That's their fault. That's their problem. That's their computer. That's their internet. That's not Steam's problem. That's not the video game's problem. That's them. So and like I sorry to be blunt, but that's true. It's not Steam's fault.
And who wants that customer support headache? Honestly,
yeah.
That's Steam, because their customer support has really had some challenges over the course of the last decade or so.
Good times. Okay,
but Will, you're absolutely correct. Objectively,
let's move to point 3 in our very unprofessional look at these things. So the next 3 are all under the Apple uses APIs, application programming interfaces, and other critical access points in the smartphone ecosystem to control the behavior and innovation of third parties in order to insulate itself from competition. Case in point, messaging. Apple protects its smartphone monopoly, remember? Throwing that word around because they're there with their top hat and their tails. No monocle. Monopoly Man did not have a monocle, in case you're wondering. That's
because it popped off.
Exactly. By degrading and undermining cross-platform messaging apps and rival smartphones. Degrading and undermining cross-platform messaging apps. So again, they say degrading. That means that there was a state in the past that they have made worse. That's simply not true.
I thought they went undermining reviews and just called them names.
Exactly. Undermining, sure, that's a different thing. But degrading, I don't think you can argue that, because one key principle with all of this stuff, and I think it's why it explains a lot of Apple's behavior, since it's come under more scrutiny over the last few years, and why they've been so reluctant to give even an inch. It's because if they get too liberal with a lot of these policies, and then it makes it almost impossible for them to go back. Because if they go back, then you get even more claims of degrading. What you had it like this, and now you're deliberately making it harder for people to compete. But if they had it like that since the beginning, then they're like, what are you talking about? We did this since these kinds of things since 2007 or say 2008 when the App Store launched. And remember how people were dying for an App Store? Developers were happy to pay 30% because Apple was taking care of all the billing and this and that and the other thing. And it's just because it was maybe a very good experience for a lot of people that it grew to become probably the single most successful product in the history of mankind. So,
bold claim.
Well, I mean,
bread's up there, the wheel.
No, but like product, right? I mean, like singular, even more than the Commodore 64, believe it or not, and that sold upward, over 12 million units. So you look at units sold and dollar value, like it's hard to argue like as a single branded product. Anyhow, so what's that?
Kleenex.
Should we look up how many the sales of Kleenex? That's all. You can get a lot of Kleenex for
let's say single brand technology product. That's all.
I would say no. I would say like
box.
Okay, so they're basically saying, oh well, they're making their app. The DOJ is claiming that Apple is making other messaging apps worse because they show up as green bubbles when people are using the Messages app.
Hurtful.
And, people's feelings get hurt. And then they even talk about, bullying and this and that and the other thing. And it's like, okay, so Apple's responsible for everyone's feelings now. One of the key things, and I think it's a little trickier, is that Apple does not provide API access to SMS. by other third-party messaging apps. So the only app you can use for SMS is, what do you know, the default messaging app that's been there since 2007 that only later got iMessage functionality as an add-on, as a seamless way for people to be able to avoid SMS charges and use the power of the internet to get messages back and forth between Apple users, whether you're on iPhone, and then eventually Macs, iPads, etc. So that was like a value add. But now people, because Apple has grown to quote unquote monopoly status, that's all that value add is now seen as a bad thing. And how come you're not opening it up to these other platforms and other apps that want to be? It's like, well, why? Go invent your own phone, right? Like, so, or go and there's another platform called Android that, fill your boots. You can use Samsung Messages on Android if you want to, or Google Messages, or what have you. So, I have trouble with a lot of these issues, but I don't want to, people say, oh yeah, you're just ITB for Apple. Sure.
So I'm going to throw this out here.
Yes.
The implementation of SMS on the iPhone since iPhone 1 to now iPhone 15 has been to the standard of SMS.
Exactly.
Right. Why does Apple have to take this basic to standard to code feature and provide the ability to interact with it to these yahoos over here? They don't. This claim, not guilty.
Now, Will, being part of a mixed smartphone race household,
what?
How important?
This is why I drank.
How important is it to you to have? How much would you like to be able to engage with your wife and her Android terrible phone in a way that is equivalent to that which you can engage with your iPhone friends using iMessage and the features that you get with that, such as read receipts, typing indicators, reactions, higher quality higher quality image and video resolution, for example. Is this something that you would love the DOJ to beat up Apple enough on that they would relent?
No.
Really?
no. I mean,
don't tell your wife.
No. Look, I think I've said this.
Home.
Yeah, I think I've said this before. It's like, it's something we notice, but it doesn't really bother us that much. If it was free, that would be fine. It does create some problems with just like sending images, but really we don't notice it much with text messages. The only thing is images get degraded a little bit or don't show up well, so we just WhatsApp. We WhatsApp them is basically what we do. So
you mean you're using another app that can do all the kind of stuff, and you're making a choice. Now, how would you prefer, however, and this is where the devil's in the details, would you like WhatsApp to be able to send regular text messages? Because of Apple's limiting private APIs, you cannot. You still have to go back and use Apple's default app for regular text messages to people that aren't on WhatsApp. But if Apple opened this up, you could use WhatsApp to SMS to anybody.
I don't want the iPhone to send regular text messages, let alone any other app.
But this is the thing, and I think this is one of the reasons why WhatsApp does so well, like in multiple countries and all this kind of stuff. Like in India, apparently it's super popular, WhatsApp. Mm-hmm. We use it across my family on my wife's side. So like we have chat groups for me and my in-laws and my wife and my sister-in-law and her kids and all that, to send family messages, and most of the messages are cat photos. So it works across devices, and the kids are on multiple devices. Some of them are on Samsung, some of them are on Google Pixels, some of them are on iPhones. I'm on an iPhone. Other members of the family are on Android devices. So, it's easier to use WhatsApp in that situation. My wife and I will text each other, but we'll also, like, if there's an image, we'll just send it on WhatsApp.
So yeah, what the DOJ is claiming is that Apple is not forced to compete as vigorously in cases like this because they're keeping private APIs to themselves, and they're forcing people to, if they want to have enhanced messaging capabilities with non-iPhone users, now all of a sudden they've got to straddle two different apps. But if they did open things up, then people could just use WhatsApp, just use Telegram, just use Signal, and let those apps send SMS messages as well. Now, it's not just about SMS because, as we know, it's old and terrible and insecure. It's not encrypted. Mm-hmm. MMS is the updated version of that lets you send images and videos. Again, crappy quality. So RCS is there's the 2019 standard, which Apple is actually going to start supporting. Finally, after a lot of pressure from various quarters. Google has been doing their thing, but they have their version is end encrypted, but it's not the standard. It's not accepted by the consortium, the worldwide consortium. So Apple didn't want to support that, but Apple's claimed they're going to support the 2019 standard and help the consortium in charge of that kind of stuff to build it, to continue to improve it and make it more secure. And then people can get stuff like improved image and video quality, reactions, typing indicators, read receipts, and that kind of stuff. So part of this is kind of going to go away as well with RCS, but it's not all going to go away because they really want Apple to open up that whether it's SMS, MMS, or RCS to the non-Apple messaging apps, and then everything will be perfect, I guess. I don't know. So now, Gray, as someone who uses some other apps in the past, you've touted the benefits of secure messaging apps like Signal. Although I got a bone to pick with Signal. I didn't realize that.
I would love a good Signal bone pick.
Well, I didn't realize because I don't use it that like WhatsApp, you had to use your phone number as a user ID until just recently. They've started allowing.
Yes,
they've just started recently allowing usernames. Like, what the hell? Like, if you're supposed to be super, Mr. Secure, now you got to give your phone number. Like, come on. So anyway,
it's like a strong border where somebody yells "papers, please," which has never ever been an issue. No,
so
I honestly, like,
as a Signal user, do you want to be able to send SMS messages from Signal?
Hell no. I don't want to be able to send SMS messages through anything. I want the SMS network hunted down, shot, and dragged out and RCS. Thrown into a lake.
Okay, RCS. Assuming we get to RCS
no.
and it is secure.
No.
What, you want to juggle multiple apps like an animal?
Yes. I want some separation between church and state.
All right.
I want to have one group of friends on this app, one group of friends on that app, one group of friends on that app. And if I don't like these people anymore, I can delete that app.
Wow. App-based relationships. That's a whole thing now.
That's why I'm on.
Okay, let's move to the next thing. And smartwatches. Apple protects its smartphone monopoly, again, there's that word, by impeding the development of cross-platform smartwatches.
Oh, F off.
You may recall a time before 2015 when smartwatches barely existed. There was the Pebble. There were some other things that barely had any market penetration. They were the purview of geeks. And then Apple Watch came along and people were skeptical. Of course, it was a weird time for Apple. They were kind of pushing the fashion aspect of things. They had an executive from Burberry that was working with them, and Johnny Ive was like in full Johnny Ive mode, and they were courting celebrities and whatnot to wear $15,000 gold Apple Watches. That was an interesting time, but within a couple of years, what do you know? The Apple Watch, maybe because some people liked it, became the most popular watch in the world, and within a few years was outselling even Rolex.
It had a few features called "doesn't suck."
Now, the DOJ might say, well, this is all because Apple was just making it difficult for other people to make watches that had all the same features. For example, if you're relying on Bluetooth, which sure is terrible to connect your non-Apple smartwatch to your iPhone, well, that's because Apple is crippling things. And there are some things that Apple watches can do that other smartwatches can't. Because, what do you know? They've added chipsets. They've done value add to help make up for the fact that Bluetooth is terrible. So the question is it Apple's responsibility to make it so other people can make their watches, more? You would think, well, let's see, if Apple wanted to sell more iPhones, maybe they would make it easier for other people who are so hot to trot on their smartwatches of choice. Sure, but Apple has decided not to. Maybe they've lost some sales because of that. Who knows? But again, this is the DOJ deciding that Apple is doing more harm than good by vertically integrating like they've done forever with hardware and software and building an ecosystem of things that work together. And they claim that this is unfairly shutting out other devices. Now, Will, as someone who has been you've only just recently got your Apple Watch Ultra 2 last fall. Before that, I think you had a couple of generations of Fitbits and the like. Yeah. I mean, they were more fitness trackers and not full-blown smartwatches. Do you feel that your Fitbits were limited by due to some nefarious things that Apple was doing, or were you compelled by what Apple was offering in the smartwatch, in the Apple Watch Ultra?
Well, first of all, Fitbit was going to change.
It got bought by Google, yeah.
Got bought by Google, and you had to download the Google app. Also, there seemed to be more functionality in an Apple Watch, which was compelling to me. But the other thing was better integration with the phone, but that wasn't a must-have. But the one thing that I have, didn't find good in the process, and I'm not sure which end is responsible, whether it's Fitbit / Google or Apple, is that it's basically impossible to transfer your data. So all my... Yeah, I think I might be on Fitbit, transferring all my Fitbit data over, 5, 6, 7 years. I was with Fitbit for quite a bit of time. I sort of lost that. It's like I can still access the app and go back and look at it, but Google might shut that off at some point. So I couldn't bring that over. So that was disappointing for me.
Gotcha.
If I may. As one of the original smartwatch owners back in 2006, the Microsoft smartwatch from Suunto, I had two of them, had a $14.99 per month fee. Wonder why that didn't take off. So smartwatches have been a thing for a very long time. And much like the tablet market, the smartwatch market was dead in the water. You've got folks like Fitbit. I was a devoted Fitbit user until Fitbit decided that they would not allow syncing to Apple Health. I paid for a $4 app called Sync Solver, which was a pirate's race to the end, trying to get my data into Apple Health.
Now, was that a Fitbit thing or was that an Apple thing?
Because Fitbit didn't want it there.
Okay.
Apple was like, hey, here's our API. You know the API that we're talking about on SMS? Not like that. This one's different. It's open. Come on in. Apple has created the modern smartwatch market, much like they did with the modern tablet market, much like they did with the modern smartphone market. Now, more smartphones have flourished. Tablets have been an absolute garbage fire until about 2 years ago. It was just an iPad market. I imagine the Apple Watch will do the same thing, where we will see better smartwatches for other manufacturers. But it's just like everything else. Nobody is dedicated to creating a better Apple Watch than Apple. They're just dedicated to creating a better watch than they had before. Apple isn't the one stopping them from doing this.
Yeah, what's interesting about a lot of the claims from the DOJ on a number of these issues is that they're saying that, well, because Apple is doing all these anti-competitive behaviors, that it's allowing them to not innovate, to slow roll technological innovations and whatnot. And I mean, it seems kind of strange given like what you said, that they've basically created the modern markets for so many of these devices. We can add wearables in there too. They totally disrupted things with AirPods. I mean, they've become cultural icons.
Remember the Q-tips hanging from your ears?
Yeah.
Nobody will ever want to wear that.
And again, because they're not just pure Bluetooth, they've added some custom chipsets and made it things so they work much more reliably than your bog standard Bluetooth stuff, right? So that is like...
No, if you're in a bog, Bluetooth is amazing. But outside of said bog, W1.
So yeah, it's one of these things like, oh yeah, well, Apple's just doing all this stuff so they don't have to innovate. It's like, well, they're doing all this stuff, and why are they so popular? Oh, it's just market. Is it just marketing, or is it that they actually are mindful? They take their time and build things that people actually like and buy. But now, so it's on the others to compete. And now, whether it's a level playing field or not, again, that's going to be decided. But again, there are other smartwatches. Google is picking up. Google and Samsung are trying to pick up their game, and there are people who, they tend to be Android phone users, of course, because maybe they don't work so great with iPhones. But a lot of people tend to go for the ecosystem, Samsung ecosystem, Google ecosystem, etc. And some people like the Apple ecosystem. Like, how many people do you know that are like, if only I could use an Apple Watch with an Android phone, or if I could only use my iPhone with, better with a Samsung Galaxy Watch. Like, are people really clamoring? Like, beating down tops. Say again.
2, maybe 3 tops.
Yeah, it's like, they got torches and pitchforks. Is this? So that is, I guess, the question. But I mean, so the claim is that, and there's a number of points here that they are just one thing after another. And a lot of this is thud.
It's an angry forum rant.
Right.
It's an angry, like, honestly, I moderated Apple Insider for over 12 years. And I'm like, wow, somebody grabbed the best of and just slapped it into a lawsuit.
So another claim, similarly, that in digital wallets, Apple restricts cross-platform digital wallets on the iPhone, reinforcing barriers to consumer switching to rival smartphones. This is interesting because it's kind of, that claim is kind of different than what a lot of the details of the claim are, because one of the key things is that they're saying that, well, Apple doesn't allow third-party wallet apps to access the NFC chip, so you can do tap to pay directly with, say, if Google wanted to make a Google Wallet app for the iPhone, or if your bank or someone wanted to have their own wallet. So you could do a certain amount of stuff, but you couldn't do the tap to pay using the NFC chip.
You have to use the Apple Wallet.
Exactly. Now, but in the header of this claim, it's saying that it's reinforcing barriers to consumers switching to rival smartphones. Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. Like, you're locked into Apple Wallet, so you're not going to go to an Android phone. No, the Google Wallet does exist. So this claim is a little confused in my estimation here.
And they missed hard on NFC.
Yeah. So
how does Translink not have a Compass Pass on the iPhone, and every other friggin' transit system in the world does?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, so NFC, the Apple, again, there's private APIs. They're only going to let that for certain things, but you would have to get your Compass Pass in Apple Wallet. Like, that's how it works. So with movie tickets, I can't tap to pay, using the Cineplex app. I've got to put the tickets in my Apple Wallet, and then I can use the tap. Which fine. What I like about the Apple Wallet is I can see all my I can see the history of all the movies I've seen, all the concerts I've been to, and stuff like that, which the other apps don't necessarily.
They used to have a really neat shred feature if you didn't want to take it anymore.
Right.
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah. So
skeuomorphism. The one time
anyhow, so I guess one of the key questions up for debate in something like this is, just because a company includes hardware on a device that they control from top to bottom, hardware and the operating system, is it mandatory for them to make every single hardware feature of that device available to any software maker?
Ooh, delicate question here.
Well, like, what if they said, you can have third-party camera apps? Like, that used to, I think.
Or how about, a car company locking out certain amounts of range or different types of speed modes? It's dumb, but here's the thing. Is there a good reason for it? Now, Apple, I think, could argue that their wallet is more secure than anything that any of these numpties are going to write. Whereas Elon's like, I would like more money. That's what it comes down to. Now, the American laws don't reflect that. Canon famously had multiple models on the shelf where just a firmware update would make the cheap one into the expensive one. That is dumb. But if that chip is used, and it's used to its fullest extent by an internal app, if I don't have to pay an extra $20 to just have the same model do two different things, that pisses me off. But if Apple's making use of this feature, F off. They made the device. Don't like it, go make your own iPhone. Get off my lawn.
Or, again, Android does exist. So
it does?
Yeah.
It kind of abides.
So that's the, any thoughts on the digital wallet? Are you?
No, I'm watching the rant fest unfold in front of me.
I've been gone for 3 weeks.
All right, so those are the big five, and then just to add, to pad things out a little bit, they throw in a bunch of extra stuff in there regarding apps, and the EC is talking to Apple about a lot of its app policies and subscriptions and the cut they take, the vig they take between 15 and 30%.
It sounds like it's gambling or something.
I mean, there are
apps. A very nice app store you got there. It'd be a shame if anything happened to it.
Anyhow, we will have a link in the show notes to the full 88-page brief. If I've read most of it, much to my own personal chagrin. And there's more there. There's a lot of detail we just can't get into. But again, it comes down to it's like there's echoes of the late 90s when the Department of Justice took Microsoft to task for using its quote unquote monopoly position in the marketplace to suppress competition with web browsers. The Netscape Navigator was a thing. And then Microsoft developed Internet Explorer. They bundled it with the OS, which was one point of contention. Again, nowadays, well, yeah, everyone's bundling web browsers with their OS, but anyhow, and that they would basically use Microsoft Internet Explorer to effectively kill Netscape, which they kind of did. I mean, it got bought by AOL, and then there was it got spun off as an open source project with Mozilla and whatnot. But remember, in desktop operating systems at that time, Microsoft had 95% market share.
And the world was far less connected.
Yeah. And It wasn't 95% market share of performance PCs. It was all personal computers. Apple was 5% or less at that time. So it's kind of a different situation.
It's a very different situation.
And oddly, Microsoft, I think last I checked, had a larger market cap than Apple. Like they're both over. They go up and down above $3 trillion at this point. So Microsoft was in the wilderness for a long time, and they've come storming back thanks in part to their partnership with OpenAI, and they've repositioned themselves cloud focused, less Windows focused, being selective about the hardware they're working on, less on the accessories and more on the
I still miss the keyword.
The tablet. Yeah. But with the Surface notebooks and the tablets and whatnot, showing other manufacturers how it can be done. So under Satya Nadella, it's a whole different ballgame than under, say, Steve Ballmer, for example.
There's an alternate universe where they developed the Courier, and this lawsuit isn't even happening because it was a hit.
Yeah, I remember that they teased the Courier 6 months before the iPad came out, just to try to get people to hold off, and of course it never came out. It was total vaporware. Love it. Okay, so Will, anything to do? What would you like to see out of this DOJ in 5 or 10 years when maybe this is all done? Is there anything that you would like, you would like Apple to loosen up on that would improve your quality of life in either communication or app selection, device integration, and the like, so you don't have to go to Uncle Tim Apple for everything?
No, I mean, you know what, I've taken somewhat of a outsider view of all of this. I mean, there's nothing there. I really feel, I mean, I keep it all in perspective. Would it be nice that I didn't have to use another app to send my wife photos? Sure, that would be great. But I don't care why. I don't blame Apple or
email
anyone else for it
too. Yeah.
It's just I mean, you're killing me, Smalls. I have to open another app. This is crap. No, it's fine. I don't mind that much. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't ruin my life. How often do I do it? A couple times a week? It's not that big of a deal. It's fine.
I had to describe you to a friend of mine the other day when I was talking about who was on the podcast. And he's and there's Will. He's generally content.
Yeah.
I just want to throw in this one last thing that they, in the miscellaneous section that the DOJ threw in, saying that Apple CarPlay was also anti-competitive because it's locking people into using iPhones with their cars. And again, do they know that Android Auto also exists, and most cars that support CarPlay also support Android Auto? But then they're saying, oh, but CarPlay too, it's taking over the entire dashboard and forcing people into an Apple-like, interface. And it's well, there's literally 2 car companies that are supporting CarPlay 2 at the moment for taking over all the screens. And as far as I can tell, no one's putting a gun to a buyer's head saying you have to plug your iPhone in and have it take over. It's just,
I mean, I've got time. I can do it.
Some of this is crazy making, honestly. I think it's let's throw everything, again, thud factor. We'll throw everything at them, and then hopefully, some of the big things will stick, and we'll get it. We'll get a few wins out of this.
I want CarPlay to branch out. I want Apple Bathroom Play. Right.
Back to the bidet. There we go.
Yeah, it's just the screen in your shower for Apple TV. It's Anyway.
Hold on, doing an update.
I don't know what the app is, but our VW, we can use both of our phones, no problem.
My 2017 Mini Countryman, neither.
Oh,
2018, got it.
My 2016 Kia Soul EV was able to do a software update.
Just remember, folks, BMW sucks. BMW iDrive sucks. I beg your pardon.
All right. Again, so we've got links to a bunch of articles from The Verge, the entire 88-page horror. And then, of course, Walt Mossberg, he says the claims of Apple, the DOJ's claims of an Apple monopoly is laughable. So leave it to Uncle Walt, who has been retired for a few years now. Now, to be fair, he had a reasonably close relationship with Steve Jobs, so he might not be totally unbiased, but he does make a few interesting
He does have a good relationship with reality, though. So,
well, you know, tech journalist for years and years and years. And that's the thing. It's like, there's a Steven Sinofsky, formerly of Microsoft, had some criticisms as well too. So he said the DOJ set out to bring cases against big tech. So that's what we got. And here we are with the case against Apple. It is weak and poorly framed and looks to me a lot like they could not figure out what to do with an obvious duopoly. Again, Apple and Google, where the market is being incredibly well served by two very different approaches. Again, the Apple's walled garden approach, the integration approach, and Google's ostensibly more open approach, although closed when it suits them. A lot of happy customers and a few loud and vocal companies complaining who already lost in court once.
Let's also point out there was a duopoly in computer chips for a very, very long time, and it's now exploded into a market that has branched out in a really big way. Looking at this right now, yeah, I think he's right.
Okay, let's move on to a little bit of quick news. Again, anytime something Playdate related comes up, we've got to pull that in. You know, for Gray's sake, $400,000 worth of Playdate game consoles disappear in Las Vegas.
No, I wasn't there. I don't know why you'd ask.
So that's all. If you're finding a Playdate on sale, they've been so hard to get for so long, and you're finding one on sale, maybe a little cheaper than you might expect. Just be aware of it could come from kind of fallen off a back of a truck or something.
I got a couple spares.
Caveat emptor. And then Will, you've got a little news for us on Marvel 1943: Rise of Hydra. What is that?
That's a new game that's coming out. I think it's 2025, if I remember correctly. No, I'm. This is definitely an interesting take on the Marvel universe, telling a particular story. So I'm very interested in it. This was sort of announced at GDC, which is the Game Developers Conference last week, and was particularly, I think, which is not surprising if you look at this footage, was announced around NVIDIA and various things about graphic card chips, because the graphics are quite amazing in this. So, I mean, they're claiming some of this is in-game footage, which I find it hard to believe. Certainly some of this is cutscenes, but yeah, no, I'm really impressed by this. And I like that they're taking a different approach, not just your standard, modern day bunch of heroes you know, and you can download more characters or something like that. It's telling a particular story focused on two heroes and two other characters, and it's in a particular period of time. So, and who doesn't like winning World War II once again? I mean, we can't win it enough, if you ask me. So,
got to hit all those timelines.
Yeah, let's punch some more Nazis. So my question is, you've got Black Panther in here. Is this like modern day Black Panther's granddad or something like this?
Yeah, his father or granddad, I guess.
So either T'Chaka or pre-T'Chaka.
Yeah,
Pre-T'Chaka.
T'Chaka.
That's
cool. Now,
Steve.
do you
yeah.
Do you play many Marvel video games yourself, Will? I know that you're kind of fully into the TV shows and movies, but what about the games?
I have. I played the Guardians of the Galaxy a couple years ago. The Spider-Man game was outstanding. I haven't played the second one yet. Yeah, I played a number. I was really into the I forget what it was called. It was like a top-down sort of
Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Yeah, Ultimate Alliance. I was huge
How
into
about that?
Well done, Gray.
Yeah.
Still got it.
Well done. And before that, there was it started off as an X-Men version of that game, and the X-Men version was outstanding as well. They had a couple sequels of both of those games. Was a big fan of that. I'm currently playing. What's it called? Can't remember the name of it, and I play it every day. But there's an iPad game that I play. That's Marvel, not Snap. That's another one. I'll think of it in a sec. Strike Force, is that what it's called? Something like that. Anyways,
It'll come to you at about 3 a.m. That's fine.
It's 3 a.m. So yeah, no, I played Marvel games for sure.
So apparently the visuals that we're seeing are thanks to Unreal Engine 5 and the facial animation tool MetaHuman Animator to help create more authentic performances. Yeah, those, even if they were cutscenes, like it looked, well, we're getting close to movie town now.
And apparently a canny reality.
Exactly. And apparently it is the grandfather of T'Challa. His name is Azuri.
I like him.
There you go.
He's blue.
Yeah, Azure.
All right. So speaking of Marvel, let's get to our momentous picks this week, starting with you, William.
Yeah, so my pick, just on the Marvel bandwagon, I've been looking forward to this for a long time, is X-Men 97. Just outstanding so far. I've watched 2 episodes, the first 2 that came out. Picks up right where we left off 25 years ago or 26 years ago. Just a great show. I can't say enough about it. I'm not going to say too much more. Go check it out. I think you don't have to have seen the original show, but it certainly will give you more of an appreciation. It's already tapping into some of the great Chris Claremont's run on X-Men, which is my favorite. That and Jim Lee are my 2 favorite runs of X-Men. Maybe you guys don't know this. I basically grew up on X-Men. My brother was a big fan. I was obsessed with it as a young kid. Chris Claremont's run, while I was too young to even really understand it, what really influenced me a lot. I love the X-Men, and I love this, and I'm so glad that they did this. This is kind of a crazy thing that they went and did. Instead of creating something new, they went back to a show that was 25 years old and said, you know what, that season ended, we're going to start right where it ended. Or pick up right where it ended. So I'm so glad they did this. I remember even before that original show came out, I was reading about it in Wizard and reading all the details about what the show was going to be, and was so excited about it. I'm just absolutely in love with the show, and I can't wait to watch more.
And it's in one of these cases where the all caps finally is fully justified, because it was your anticipated pick 2 years in a row when we do our early in the year, and it's like it didn't come out in 2022 and it didn't come out in 2020. No, it didn't come out in 2023.
Yeah,
whatever the case.
It was supposed to come out in 2023 and it didn't.
Yeah. So we got it. Now you finally got to, and so it's worth the wait, I take it.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of waiting, there was a version of Dune that we never ever got to see. We got the 1984 David Lynch version, and we've got our wonderful 2 installments from Denis Villeneuve so far. But Gray, your pick of the week is about a version of Dune that the world never got a chance to see. Tell us about it.
Yes, indeed. So the director, Alejandro Jodorowsky?
Yes.
Yes. So I had decided back in the, I believe it was early 70s, after Dune had come out, that his next project he wanted to tackle was Frank Herbert's Dune, and began putting together this gorgeous Bible of a film structure. And so there's actually there's a documentary from 2013 called Jodorowsky's Dune, where they interview the auteur himself and talk about how this film might have happened, didn't happen, and probably in whatever universe where it did happen, one of real things ensued. Right? No Donald Trump as president, cancer cured, people happy, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. So
Woo, woo.
here's the interesting thing. On YouTube, you can actually see a viewing of the Yoda Rescue Bible. And there's a fella in the documentary who says he's the only one who's basically seen the film because he's had this book narrated by Yoda Rescue as well. I foolishly went on to Amazon. I was like, I wonder if I could buy this. Halfway through the movie. No, you can't. So I put together a team to steal it.
Perfect. Ocean's 14.
All right. Ocean's 13 and a half. So anyway, we'll link the YouTube video in the show notes. Check out Yoda Rescue's Dune. I'm only about halfway through because it's a lot of Yoda Rescue saying the very same thing over and over again, but I could listen to that man say that very same thing, which is I'm making an amazing movie, or I should have made an amazing movie. I could listen to him do that to the end of time. So we're actually going to buy an Apple TV and just have off to the side playing this on repeat. It feels apropos.
I'd have to second this documentary. It's quite wild to imagine what we could have seen. And some people feel that what his vision was perhaps more in line with some of the Frank Herbert stuff, which got a little wild at times. And the production design was there was quite a heavy hand from H.R. Giger, who was responsible for the Xenomorph design and other stuff in the Alien franchise, for example. So can you imagine Dune, but with like an alien sort of look, plus like, yellow and purple jumpsuits and like all sorts of crazy things. Like the costumes as well were wild. So I definitely have to recommend anyone who's at all interested in the original David Lynch Dune movie, which is quite different, or the more recent Villeneuve installments, which are, I think we can all agree, are pretty amazing. This was a totally different take, which would have been cool to see, and it's a little shame. Maybe someday someone will, in another 20 years, we'll get a reboot.
There's the quote early on in the documentary. It says, "I wanted people who had taken LSD to feel like this was familiar," which is great. And you got to think, at least we weren't the universe that got Terry Gilliam's Dune because it ended the planet.
Oh, too bad. All right. So, any projects for us this week, Gray? I know Will doesn't have any beats.
Unfortunately, no. I'm still working on getting our website descriptions updated, but because I decided to do things like laundry and vacuum the house, these tedious household chores that we should have AI and robots for, I did instead.
If only someone would invent a robot vacuum. So
right? Wouldn't that be great? Like a little docking station. And which universe am I in again?
I've been Berenstain Bears, that one. So
I'm pretty sure it's Baron Harkonnen Bears.
Oh,
well done. I'm refreshing Wub today every other day.
I know, it's actually just there to torture you.
Perfect. All right. A couple of momentous projects. One from our lovely and talented Missing Quarter, who might be back soon. We'll see.
She's got
another YouTube video for us. Gmail tips. 8 Gmail productivity tips every user should know. 7.5 minutes compared to what are we at now? An hour and almost an hour and a half. So if you want some bite-sized information on various Google tools and more, the latest from Tasia, Gmail tips for productivity.
This podcast is bite-sized. It's just a bit of a choking hazard.
Exactly. It's, 88-page PDF size. So, and then speaking of Tasia, she and I have another episode of AI Name This Show. Last episode, we talk about a company called Extropic, who has a radically new design for processors, claiming to potentially boost AI processing by up to 100x. And just going wild, breaking Moore's law, all to hell.
All the other letters, no advance, but just X, 100 times faster.
Exactly. They, there's a couple of videos that we link to with a short interview and longer interview with the founders there. Some deep physics stuff going on. Again, could be vaporware. We'll believe it when we see it, but kind of exciting because existing processors that we've seen from NVIDIA and others were originally optimized for graphics processing and have been repurposed for AI. And now they're making them more AI specific, like we saw Will and I spoke about last week with the GTC 24, NVIDIA's event, where they talked about their next generation of processors and NPUs. And, we've got others. Apple's been working on their neural engines and the like. So exciting space. You can follow what we're doing there at AINameThisShow.com. And because I'm bad at my job, I forgot to put the links up. But look, here's Tasia, youtube.com/Tasia Custodi, TasiaCustodi.com, AINameThisShow.com. And of course, you can find out more about us at www.momentus.tv for all of this audio and video goodness and links and everything else. All right, gentlemen, we did it.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
Great to have you back, Gray.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And to all of you out there who might still be hanging around, we hope your week is truly momentous.